Hello everyone, welcome to Day's Daily Dose TV. This is September the 1st. I wanted to touch on something that Days of Our Lives brought to the forefront, either intentionally or unintentionally, on this week's show, and that is we are left with the impression a couple of days in a row that Sean is contemplating suicide. Now, suicide, of course, this is a show, but it is a real problem in all of our lives. It's a nationwide problem. It knows no race. It's sort of like cancer. I wanted to cover some things about that, my personal experience with it, some tips for parents, some things that I had to do, and just in hopes that it would help someone or encourage someone that was struggling. So if you're struggling and you're feeling just lost and broken and you're feeling like you don't want to live anymore, you can call or text 988. It's the 24-hour, 7 days a week suicide prevention hotline, and they can help you. You could probably seek out a local church. Definitely just make yourself reach out for some hope and know that you are worth it and you are loved. And there's a scripture in the Bible that says, your joy cometh in the morning. And all my life, during different things that put me into depression, just normal situational depression, breakups or my dad's death, just whatever it is, whenever I was struggling, just felt like I was dying inside, if I could just go to sleep, I knew the next day it was going to get better. Maybe not a lot better, and maybe a lot better, if you could just make it to the morning, that 24 hours. And I have found that to be true my whole life, and I noticed that in the Bible when I read the whole Bible, and it just stuck with me. So please keep encouraged, and no one has the right to try to lower your self-worth in any way. Everyone deserves to live. Everyone deserves to not suffer. So if you are suffering, if you know someone who is suffering, please encourage them to seek treatment, because you will be missed. And the people you love most are going to be the most affected. Now, I'm going to share my personal tragedy, and I don't know if I can get through it, even though it's been many years. I can tell you that it is tragic. It changes your whole life, your whole family, and grief is forever. It doesn't go away. You never stop missing those you love, whether they died of natural causes or hurt themselves. So, Days of Our Lives kind of brought this out, and of course Sean did get treatment, and he finally agreed to go into the hospital, and Marlena put him on a 24-hour hold. In real life, that rarely happens. If you go in and you're in as bad shape as Sean was, they're going to keep you for about 2 weeks. And be prepared that during that time, the least I've seen is 7 days. Like for 7 days, at least 1 week, you are not allowed to have any interaction with the outside world. Your mother, your brother, your wife, your husband, or that's the way that it is here, and that's been my experience. Now, 7,000 to 30,000 people commit suicide a year. If that's not tragic, I don't know what is. But I'm going to tell you what I went through and things I did and things I did for my children. And absolutely, suicide is a part of my life that I wish I didn't have to remember. My children's father committed suicide in 2000. My kids were 11 and 13. And we were not together. We hadn't been together for a couple of years. He was married to another lady, and she had a little boy that was not his, but he still looked at him as his dad. I was always on good terms with her. She was good with my children, good to them. Seriously, she waited on them and all kinds of stuff. I don't know how they had her wrapped around their fingers, but they did. And maybe just because they started visiting after they got married, you know, when they were even smaller, a little bit smaller. So, but we remained close, and of course for the kids, and we got along pretty well. Not when we were together, but pretty well. But I always loved him, and I always thought someday we're going to get back together. It doesn't matter he's married to Elizabeth. That's not going to happen. That's not going to last forever. Because I felt like we were connected, bonded, because of the children. But because of just our history in general. So, his wife called me at 6 o'clock one morning. And she was crying. And she told me that, I'm not even going to say how he died, that something had happened. And although my first instinct was that he was dead, something kicked in, and I said, well, is he okay? And she said, no, he didn't make it. And her and him were having some major problems, and they were splitting up. And his mother had just died. Not even quite a month before he did. So he was spiraling, and I never thought he would do that, but he did. And she begins to tell me, can I call the family and stuff, you know, his family, because she has their phone numbers at work. She doesn't have them at home. Now, I didn't believe that. What I did believe is that she was feeling some overwhelming guilt, and I'm sure she did. And I felt like I'm the one that are these kids' mother. Love him to death, so yes, I will contact the family. But more importantly to that, I was going to have to find a way to tell my small children who were 11 and 13, probably the worst news that they would ever receive in their lifetimes. And how am I going to tell them this? Well, they were still asleep. They hadn't got up for school yet. So I went on and notified his family. And told him what his wife has told me. And I notified his best friend. And then I called my mother and my brother and told them, and asked them to come over for support when I told the kids. This is important if you have to tell your kids something like this. You do want some backup there, because this is going to be something a little hard for them to grasp. So my mother and brother came over, and I told them both. Now, since they were so small, young, I didn't want to lay the whole he killed himself on him. It just seemed so violent and unlike him. And I thought, I'm just going to start with he's passed away. And then as they deal with that a little bit, I will tell them how. So my oldest son, of course, 13, he was bawling and screaming. My youngest son just went back in his room and started playing his video games. And he did not cry. That was concerning to me. It was very hard on both of them. So their dad and mother and stepmother lived out in the country, and they lived about 2 hours from us. So this is where the funeral and the funeral services were going to be. And his wife told us, we could stay with her if we wanted to, at her and their dad's home. And I said, it's just a 2-hour drive. I'll just drive back and forth. But after I thought about it, I thought, I'm going to have a lot to deal with. She's going to be mourning as bad as us. And I'll just tell her I'm going to stay with her when I get down there. So we got there. And of course, you know the part where the family can go in and have a little time with the body before the other people come. So we just had one day, I think, of viewing and the funeral the next day. But my youngest son, when we got to the funeral home, we went on and took our clothes and a couple of blankets and things, and actually I had went to the stepmother's home first, and I was waiting for her to get there, and I still hadn't told the kids how he died. And I thought, I'm going to have to, because people at the funeral home are going to be talking. And they did. And a lot of people were very comforting. But if you just close your eyes and you listen, you could hear them saying not the nicest thing about their dad. And this pissed me off so bad. I didn't want my kids to hear this. But anyway, we were there waiting, and my kids were just driving me crazy. What happened to him? Was he in a car accident? And I thought, I'm going to have to tell him. So I told him in the car. And I look in the back seat at my youngest son, and the one that never cried. And I see tears coming down his face. And I said, please come up here in the front seat with me and your brother. And he just wouldn't. And he said, why, Mommy? Why didn't he stay for us? And I tried to explain to him that he was feeling somehow guilty. And he just put his head under the cover, and I don't think the stepmother showed up. She was already at the funeral home or something, and we had to go on over to the funeral home, which we did. And when we got there, my kid's grandfather, their dad's dad and wife were already there. His best friend and his wife were already there, and we had known them all of our lives, all their lives. And my youngest son would not get out of the car. He just laid in the back seat. I didn't want to pull him out. I didn't know what to do. So when I turned my head, he shut the door and locked it. So he locked himself in the car. And I said, okay. So I went on in the funeral home. I thought, I'm going to give him a minute. I went on in the funeral home, took my other son in there with his grandpa and stuff. And his best friend and his wife came back out to the car with me to help me get the youngest one out. I'm sharing this to tell you that if you're feeling like taking yourself out, no matter how bad things are, and you have children or you have family, think about them. Let your love for them keep you going. We got him out of the car, and there were so many people at the funeral home. People I didn't know, just country people from way down in Hickville, USA. And most of my family or friends of mine or the kids' teachers, and just so many people wanted to come on our side of the family, but it was so far away. And so we were pretty much, there. We had people be so very kind to us, but there were a lot of whisperings, and I can't express to you enough, when you are in a funeral home, please have respect for the deceased and their family. You don't know if someone very dear to them is sitting right next to you when you're saying something to them. Like I heard stuff like, he was a coward. He just left all three of these kids. Because, he was a stepdad to her son, because her son's father was nowhere in sight. And it was very hurtful. And I'm pretty sure my kids heard some of this stuff. So, talking about somebody just wanting to let loose and beat some asses, that was this girl. So I'm looking around, and my kid's best friend, him and his wife, she was pregnant the same time I was pregnant with my youngest son. So we've been friends forever. And they kind of stuck with us. And they're asking where my youngest son was. And I'm looking all over the funeral home, and I can't find him. And I'm going and I'm asking everyone. I'm like, have you seen this little boy? And he's like this tall. He's being very quiet and withdrawn. And I went and I thought, oh my God. I just sat down. I was drained to my last drop, but I had to keep going. Had to be strong. Had to be there for them. Not even a minute to think that my happily ever after would never be, or any of my feelings. And of course I would never put my feelings above my kids. So I sat down in this chair and I look over and I see these little feet. It was my youngest son. He was just balled up under a table with a lamp on it. Had two chairs on each side of it, people sitting there talking, no telling what he was hearing. And I'm sitting on a chair just right across from him. I went over and I got him out, and I took him back in the room, where he could get something to drink or something to eat. We sat back there, and he was a little more social then, but he was it was a lot for a little kid, for any child, for any family member. Of course, his dad was crying so hard he could not stand. And I told her, we decided we were going to spend the night at her house, so we could go to the funeral I was just drained. And she said, "Oh no, I didn't think you were going to stay there. My sister and her is going to stay with her and her family." So I said, I'll just drive back home. And she said, just get a hotel room. Well, I was a single mom. You don't prepare for deaths. I didn't have the money to pay for a couple of hotel rooms and go get us food and all this, because got paid every 2 weeks, and I was on my off week. So that was the week, didn't have the extra money for that. And she said, "Well, it's too far for you to drive back." I said, No, it's not a big deal. The kids would probably like to be in their own little atmosphere after this circus. But we were getting ready to wrap it up for the night. And I was trying to gather the kids up. And the kid's stepmom came over to me and told me that some people that were there at the funeral home, I did not know them, had went and paid for a room for 2 nights, so we didn't have to drive home the day of the funeral if we didn't feel like it, at the new hotel they had just built down there. It was a Motel 6. It was really nice. And I said, "Well, they didn't have to do that." And she said, "It's not a problem. And they wanted to do it. I didn't have any say-so over it." And, she was also trying to give me money to go get food for the kids. And I didn't take that because I said, I have money to feed us. I just didn't have money to spend on a hotel room and all that. So that was very kind and very much appreciated, because we were drained. The day of the funeral was just as bad, but not quite as bad as the night before. So we had some issues with somebody donated the burial plot, and it is a beautiful place up on a little hill. And I'm probably going to post a picture of it. I've got several pictures of it. It's a beautiful cemetery. And then there's this little rock road. You got to go way back in Stickville, USA, and turn off that and go back in Super Stickville, USA. Literally, it takes 2 hours and 45 minutes to get there from our house. But it's beautiful, because right across from it is a beautiful little white church. And the day of his funeral, they were over there. I don't think it was a Sunday, but the choir was practicing. They were singing. It was very peaceful and very beautiful. But the grandpa there told his wife, "Let me take him home. I'll pay for his plot and everything." She wanted to bring him back down here where we all lived. And she wouldn't do it. She said, "No, I want him here." Now, she hated living in Stickville. That's where she grew up. I love those little towns stuck off in the middle of nowhere. And she didn't want to stay living down there. She grew up down there. So, just like I thought, she packed up and moved to the city. She came up here by us, just like I knew she would do. And I begged her to please let the grandpa move him up here. And she said he loved it out here. He didn't want to be buried there. And I thought, I don't believe that. And his best friend had just recently had a conversation with him about that. And he didn't want to be buried ever in Stickville. And I told her, I said, "Look," I said, "you're a young woman. He was 37. I think she was 26 or 7 at the time." I said, you're going to go on with your life. You're going to meet somebody else. Maybe even have some kids. But for the rest of their lives, my kids are going to have to drive 2 hours and 45 minutes to visit their father. Please let Grandpa take him up by us. And she still refused. She was convinced that this was what he wanted. So there wasn't anything we could do about it. You know, my kids couldn't really fight her on it. They were under 18. And, you know, she was in charge of everything. She was married to him. So they were getting a divorce, but had not. So had they gone through with the divorce already, then it would have went back to his father, you know, his family and his kids, you know, what they wanted to do. So, that's my sad little story, and I can tell you it's affected us our whole lives. What I wanted to say is that if you decide you don't want to live anymore and you have children and you think, well, they'll be better off without me, there is no world that your kids are better off without you. And your kids aren't going to care what you've done or anything. You don't have to be perfect because their love is pure. Please live for your family, if for no other reason. Now, of course, I am all on top of this. I started immediately doing research and stuff because I thought, this puts my kids at high risk. I know it does. Common sense would tell you. And of course, research shows that kids of parents that committed suicide they very often die that way themselves. That goes on to my second part of my story. After their dad died, both of my kids turned into children. I didn't know who they were. They had all kinds of issues. They, of course, both had to go into counseling, and my oldest son tried to commit suicide himself. He took a bunch of Seroquel, which was an antipsychotic drug that he had been given, which I don't think he needed, but this is what he almost died. This is what I wanted parents to know. He didn't do any of the normal stuff they tell you. Watch for people giving their stuff away or this or that. You know, they tell you these things to look for. That's not all you got to look for. Because when I went to bed, my son was fine. He didn't tell me he was struggling. He wanted to die. Nothing. That's when you should be scared. He woke me up and said, "Mom, I think I made a mistake." I said, "What's wrong?" And he said, "I took 10 Seroquel. I think I'm going to die." I mean, I flew up out of that bed like nobody's business while I'm getting dressed. I am on the phone with poison control. I went to nursing school in 1984. I knew poison control, the number, like I know anything. Didn't have to look that crap up. Called them, told him his weight, what he had took, and they said, that will kill him. Get him to the hospital as fast as you can. Where are you taking him? I said, the Children's Hospital. And they called him and told him he was coming and what he had taken. He lost consciousness in the car. He was in and out of it. And I had a friend with me in the car because I was hysterical. And he was unconscious by the time we pulled up to the ER. But they got him in. He hadn't quit breathing. And he didn't die, thank God. But my point is, parents need to be aware, because they do not always let you know. It's not always so obvious what could I have done differently. I don't know. I had them both in counseling. My youngest son went to counseling. They both went to counseling. Of course, my oldest son was in the children's ICU unit. They kept him there. Oh gosh, I don't remember how long he was there. And he recovered fine. He was in such a good mood but he was like unconscious for a long time, and it was the effects of the drug. They were pumping him with IVs. They had him hooked up. I never left his side. I had to take off work so much with all of this, and I had just went back to work. And I thought, this is so bad. When I call my boss, I mean, my God. She's going to say, girl, you're a mess. Just go on and take off some more. But she didn't. My work people were very, very supportive. Thank God I had support, But they kept him there and had him seeing counseling and going to sessions there in the hospital. And then, of course, we continued that when he went home. He lived, and that was the most important things. I remember him saying to me as he was losing consciousness, Mom, I don't want to die. And I cannot tell you how bad it was. But pay attention to your kids. And know that no matter what you're going through, if you take your life, it is going to be so much worse on your children. Such a high percentage of children, of parents that have committed suicide, do die the same way. It's something that is forever on their minds. Now, my youngest son was going to counseling for like a year. He had an attitude about it. They both developed behavior problems. I mean, it was just a nightmare for the rest of their school years, for sure. But they were both just so angry and hurt. And my youngest son, the counselor finally told me, I don't think it's being of any benefit to him. And I said, everybody told me, his pediatrician told me, you need to get him in some counseling. And she explained to me that until he was ready to deal with it, and it didn't seem like he was keeping things bundled up, that there wasn't much we could do but keep an eye on him. And I said, when's he going to deal with it? Well, I'm here to tell you that son is 32 years old now, and it was only about 4 years ago that he broke down and dealt with it. Now, this little boy held on to this up into adulthood. All that suffering. I can't express to you how important it is to get help if you're struggling. And if you don't have children, I mean, your family, your parents, your brothers, your sisters, nobody's life is better without you. So please, if you know anyone that's struggling or anyone that's having trouble with their children, please share this video. 988, you can text it, you can call it, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I was struggling real bad one time when I was younger, and I literally pulled off a road at a church and went up there banging on the door. Didn't know them, hadn't been to that church. So, I'm not going to keep going. I thought I might could get through it without crying, but it's just an emotional thing. And both of my children still, they're doing well. They're adults, 35, 32, and just the other day, my youngest son asked me if he thought his dad would be proud of him. And I think all the time how much he is missed, how they have grown, the things they've done with their lives, the things he could have shared with them was just snatched away. Snatched away. So please, get help. Think of those around you and know that you are loved. There's no one who wants you out of here. And I don't care, especially if you are a young teenager or something and you are getting bullied on the internet, somebody's fat shaming you or just anything. I've seen some horrible things that kids do to each other. Turn it off. Confide in your parents. Reach out for help. Don't struggle. Don't suffer in silence. And just remember, September 10th is National Suicide Awareness and Prevention Day. So please, if you know anyone, please share this video. Thank you. God bless you. God bless all the grieving families. Just know that you are loved and you are worth